Hi everybody, I'm Cassie. I would like to begin by sending blessings to everyone on the planet. This video is about humans and telepathy. Telepathy is one of the most powerful psychic abilities. It is mind-to-mind communication, exchanges between a sender and a receiver. And telepathy is a kind of paranormal practice like precognition and clairvoyance and empathy. And the folklore around the world is replete with examples of telepathy, which not only exist among various species, but even between the elements of nature and species. It is interesting to note that telepathy is an accepted and common practice amongst the Aboriginal people of Australia, and psychics and mystics have mastered the art of telepathy and practice it for the welfare of both human beings as well as animals. And a very good example of telepathy practiced in everyday life is the focused prayer being answered, a two-way communication from the higher powers. Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung and William James have testified to the accuracy of the phenomenon of telepathic communication. The American Society for Psychical Research, founded in 1885, have conducted serious research into this psychic phenomenon as well, and experiments in mental telepathy were conducted at a public scale in both the USA and the UK after World War I. Their conclusions attested to the existence of telepathic communication, and in the 19th century, the British chemist and physicist William Crookes opined that telepathy acts like radio waves. Every one of us, at one time or another, has had a telepathic experience. For example, you're thinking of a person and then they'll ring you up. Instances of telepathy between animals and their lovers are too numerous to name. Mothers and fathers are quite telepathic about the welfare of their children, and twins remain telepathic for all their lives, especially when they feel hungry. So, how is telepathy possible? Telepathy is possible via the brain's propagation of extremely low frequency waves, and low frequency means that there is a long distance between any two wave crests. And when we are in a quiet resting state, our brain waves are at an extremely low frequency. And low wave frequency waves can pass straight through the body of a human and also through dense structures. And how, you may ask? It is because an atom is mostly just a void of seemingly empty space. The nucleus of an atom can be compared to a small, bizarrely fluctuating pea situated at midfield in a large football stadium, while the electron would be a tiny microdot located way out in the furthest bleachers. So this shows that energy waves can pass through an atom quite easily. Energy waves can pass through the internal and external structure of your head, as well as seemingly solid objects around you. And people can learn to desensitize themselves to certain energy waves in order to remotely view a distant person's perception and effectively reading another person's thoughts. And so how do they do this? Well, it is because the human brainwave frequencies normally range from 5 Hertz, which is 5 cycles per second, and then range up to 30 Hertz. They can spike beyond that range, which indeed allows for some rather unusual phenomenon, to say the least. Resting humans' brainwaves range from 5 to 11 Hertz, which are extremely low frequencies and are part of the basis of telepathy. And through army research, it was found that humans have the ability to cause thoughts to stream out and away from, and even at angles to our brain synapses via extremely low frequencies. Our brain synapses are the connections in our brain that are found between nerve cells. And in addition, we may actually be able to leap beyond our brain nerve structure via what some physicists call scalar electromagnetic frequencies in order to instantly communicate across great distances. There is evidence of this in the Australian Indigenous culture, the Australian Aborigines. They receive these messages or send them over thousands of kilometres, and this is the cause behind their walkabout. Our brain has around 10 billion brain cells, each of which has gentle curvatures in them that enable us to focus our attention in every direction without even turning our heads to face one way or to another. And every brain cell has from 10,000 to 20,000 tiny string-like dendrites reaching out to communicate with other brain cells, and there is an abundant curvature there too. I would also like to add that given there are reportedly 1,014 smaller atoms in a single cell alone, and our brain contains up to 133 times 1024 atoms in each. Each atom has different varieties of curvature in them as well, and this too is conducive to complex focusing via nearly instant communication across the energy plasma. Essentially, we are already, each and every one of us, capable of participating in some measure with telepathy, and this is obvious when we step aside and take the time and observe human behaviour. It is then we are able to become clear observers with the ability to listen without our internal senses filtering what we hear, and through the development of this practice we're actually able to see people and their thoughts on many levels of consciousness quite clearly. It is so very important that we sustain a level of consciousness that is not involved in judging or blaming others for their thoughts or actions. And this is because if we are not clear within ourselves, as well as compassionate towards ignorance, then it is highly possible that we are indeed projecting our own perceptions onto someone else, which really has little to do with communication. And in this instance, there can be no real possibility of developing our telepathic abilities. You will find that children are always much more aware of our psychic abilities as humans. However, over time an enculturation process occurs where children are literally taught not to develop their extrasensory perception, their telepathic communication. Extrasensory perception is actually part of our natural evolution. In more evolved dimensional realities, there is no distinction between what one entity thinks and another. They recognize themselves as one being, and each entity exists as a significant and valuable part of the process of life. And these evolved beings share their information without the laborious effort involved in what humans perceive as being language. And in this physical dimension, here in our dimension, a great deal of our life's energy and process is involved with communication with others. And unfortunately, as it seems, conflict does indeed arise out of a lack of understanding when sharing information between each other. There are many concrete stories of emergency telepathy indicating that humans have the ability to be strongly telepathic during an emergency. And even stones and crystals and places can store memories and transmit them to us if we open ourselves up to this reality. And just so you know, in the field of parapsychology, telepathy and forms of ESP, extrasensory perception, falls under the category of psi gamma. So telepathy can be divided into three different types. The first is physical telepathy, and examples of this would be sensations of hunger, pain, or illness occurring spontaneously. The second is mental telepathy, and this is where communication and visualization occur between individuals without any physical media. And the third is emotional telepathy, And this is where individuals may feel different levels of depression, excitement or fear without any real explanation. In its earliest forms, telepathy appears to be instinctive. However, it can be easily developed with practice. I learned to do telepathy in New Zealand while at Hogwarts there, and we were taught this way. Have another person and a pack of cards, and in turns one person holds a card up facing away from you, and they know what the card is and you do not. Then the person holding the card would project the thought of what is on that card to you, and your job is to receive the thought. And this goes back and forth. One projects, the other receives, and obviously getting the card right meant that the thought was projected well to you. And with this exercise and much practice, you can indeed develop your telepathic abilities. I myself have learned a technique where you direct the thought into another's pineal gland, and this can pretty much be automatic and works every time when the right intent is set, and is so very powerful indeed, and may possibly be how the Australian Aboriginals project their thoughts. As I said earlier, trigger their walkabout. There is another odd and truly amazing thing worth noting about the Australian Aborigines, and that is that when they receive a message, etherically, telepathically, they begin their walkabout to whomever was calling them, and they are actually able to get thousands of kilometres almost instantly. There have been stories of Aboriginal men drinking at the pub and mid-conversation hopping up and leaving, only to be reported to turn up in another state or town in Australia in unexplainable times, and often not knowing how they got there or even why they went there, only to find a beloved auntie or uncle had called them, often because a family member was dying. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video.